One of the most beneficial positions or two positions to help reinforce are the tall kneeling and half kneeling positions. What I see a lot of are people that work on traditional core exercise on the ground, whether it's your front plank, side plank, a lot of crunching movements. If we take it back and we look at exercise like the dead bug, being able to keep that lumbopelvic neutral and a good centrated position of the rib cage over the pelvis, that's a position that we want to help reinforce as we become more upright. So yes, we can do that on the ground, fairly easy. You can master those positions, but can you do that now standing? Because there's kind of a disconnect between core exercise on the ground and how that core functions in upright position, which is ultimately what we want to get. We don't want to get a small core, a strong core when we're on the ground doing these exercises. We want that strength, stability to carry over to every single day movements, whether it's exercise, running, just playing with your kids, regardless of what that is. So tall kneeling and half kneeling are two positions which help reinforce that. They look very simple, and they are, but you have to think of a couple key points. So tall kneeling position, on the knees, up tall, but just sitting in this position isn't enough. What you need to do is help engage, drive the hips forward. Usually when that happens, the back will start to extend there to a certain degree. So you have to use or create some stability through abdominals and obliques, transverse abdominis here to the front to help pull that rib cage down. So now I'm in a position where rib cage is aligned perfectly over the pelvis, so it's a nice stable position for the spine and the core, and there's a nice straight line, knees, hips, and shoulders all the way up the kinetic chain. So that is the position we want to reinforce, and you might be asking what exercises I do in that position. We can do a tall kneeling. Usually I do this with a plate, but just a press, so having a weight in front of you, pressing forward. So the tendency there is to arch back and to lose your position. You really have to use abdominals and hips to hold and maintain your position. Or we can do some of our upper body lifting. So if you're someone that does shoulder raises, shoulder press, doing that in the tall kneeling can also be beneficial because we're creating stability through the pelvis, the spine, and the rib cage, and we have to hold that as we go through an upper body movement. So that is the tall kneeling position. From there, I always like to progress people to half kneeling because in this lunge or staggered stance, again, half kneeling on one knee as opposed to kneeling, we have a little more sway from side to side. So we have to create more stability through the hips and core to make sure we're not losing our position side to side. Everything is still the same as far as our setup. Drive the hips forward, abs, abdominals, pull the rib cage down, so I'm centrated. My rib cage is directly over my pelvis as opposed to you see here, ribs are flared, pelvis is slightly tucked or anterior tilted. We don't have that optimal position, rib cage over pelvis. And then from there, I can do the same exact exercises, so glutes, rib cage. I can go through my upper body lifting and maintaining that core position. Whatever exercise you're doing, could be a chop and lift, trying to keep the spine stable and looking at more that thoracic rotation in shoulders than lumbar, pelvis, and rib cage. But those are a few strategies to help transfer the core strength and stability to more of an upright position, because this position, if we can appreciate and learn how to reinforce that, that will transition over to everyday movements, walking up and down stairs, running, different things around the house to help create a better, solid midsection for you then to hopefully reduce the likelihood of injury, back pain, getting yourself in a bad position, which creates less efficient movement.